information to help you run your business better and improve your marketing campaigns. My name is Hank Hoffmeyer, and thank you for joining me on Hank's Marketing and Business Tips. Welcome to episode 301 of the HMBT podcast. Today, it's all about getting your emails to the inbox. I'm joined by Matthew Vernhout. He is the principal email advisor at Email Industries, an organization that can help you send and convert more emails all along the way. Matthew, appreciate you joining me. I know we know each other. We've seen each other on the conference track and follow each other on the socials, all those good things. And it's just great to sit behind the mic with you today.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me on the show.
Yeah, I have to say you're probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the email deliverability space that I know, and it's going to be a treat. Some people may fall asleep while listening to us, but other ones should listen intently because email deliverability, which is getting your email to the inbox, is very important. And no one better than you to guide us through those tough things that happen when your email gets sent, right?
I mean, there are certainly lots of challenges when it comes to sending email. I think one of my favorite hashtags that I've been using for, I don't know, probably close to a decade is email is hard. Because everyone seems to think email is so easy, but in reality, it's not getting any easier as we go.
I thought it was a simple three-step process. I acquire email addresses, I send them an email, and they give me money. That's how I thought it always worked.
I mean, in theory, it's that simple, but along the way, there's, four layers of authentication, reputation, spam solutions, designing content, and then actually giving an offer that someone wants to click on and do something with. So even that's a simplified version.
Right. And for the most part, we're not going to get into designing because neither one of us are really designers for email and content. We'll leave that to ChatGPT or the special people you hire to write your content. Really, what we want to talk about is between, or sometimes most part, before you hit send and after you hit send, what are some things that happen in your email before they're even probably deciding whether or not they're going to go to the inbox or not. And I know I've mentioned terms like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, and BIMI, which is always fun to say in the past. But I think, let me ask you this specific question. If you were talking to someone that thought they knew a lot about email marketing, and then maybe they're going to start sending a lot of volume and they need to know what is it that makes my email address go to the inbox or the spam folder? What would you say if I came up to you, say at a conference, and say, Matthew, I hear you know a lot about making sure emails get into the inbox. What do I need to know? How would you answer that question?
I mean, certainly all things related to email start with your data, right? Like forget the actual sending of you. It's where does your data come from, right? And a lot of times we spend, conversation time with customers talking about acquisition, types of acquisition, what their different sources are, how they're tracking those sources. Because if you have bad data, right, the analogy of garbage in, garbage out makes perfect sense when it comes to email, right? And there's a reason that I named my website Email Karma because it really is do good things happen, do bad things happen. And depending on where you fall in the middle, you can maybe do a little bit of both. But data is always a primary driver. And if you're not sending messages to people that ask for it, expect bad things to happen. If you're sending messages to people that ask, but the messages aren't what they asked for, expect bad things to happen. Um, and then, obviously there's 101 technical things in between. How's your mail server set up? How much, how fast are you sending mail? How many connections you make between your server and the next? Then all your authentication stuff, which you just mentioned, SPF, DKIM, DMARC, BIMI. If we really want to get crazy, we could talk about MTA, STS. We could talk about DNSSEC. There's all these different layers. And then you have reputation filters, third-party solutions. Then you have localized solutions right down to user level filtering and then feedback from those users. So there's, email is hard, but it all starts with the data you have and ends with the data you receive back and what you do with that.
So some people might think that we just opened up a book about, rocket engineering, right? And it's just like all this like foreign language to them. So let's dissect this a little bit. The first part you mentioned was data, and quality in, quality out, garbage in, garbage out. What aspect of that is very important? In other words, can I obtain email addresses from my website using a form? Can I gather contacts if I go to a conference and they are giving me a list of all the attendees? Should I be using, say, Apollo or some other service where I can purchase 100,000 contacts that are in my niche? What are some of the tips, tricks, and do's and don'ts when it comes to collecting and sending to these folks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the best data you're going to collect is going to be first party data. So anything you get on your own website, anything you're getting through contracts with customers, what you're getting through, um, you know, business card exchange potentially, right? I always kind of look at things through the filter of sort of the Canadian anti-spam legislation. Being Canadian, it's one of the filters I look at, but also, can spam to a degree. Um, but under the Canadian anti-spam legislation, you basically have two types of consent. You have an express consent where someone has said, here's my email, you checked all the boxes, you asked me all the right questions, and I've given you it. And I say, send me your marketing communications. Right. Then there's an implied consent. Right. The implied consent is maybe that like step two, step three level, right? If we want to talk like premium content is the confirmed opt-in. Then you have your express consent. Then you have your implied consent. Implied consent is going to be, I bought something from you, right? There's that relationship that the individual has engaged with a brand, but you didn't necessarily ask their consent to send them future communications. Um, which if you're sending anything in Europe, I mean, you better be asking for that consent, right? GDPR, Brazil, South Africa, Australia all have very strong opt-in data processing and anti-spam laws, along with Canada. And then you get into that really troublesome data, that third-party co-reg, that third-party purchased. My friend gave me this list. I have no idea where it came from, kind of stuff. Or, like you mentioned, I went out to a data broker and bought 100,000 addresses. That's where you start to see almost a clear delineation between sort of the first three types of consent I talked about and the last three types of
Mhm.
consent. The first three, generally, you're going to do good things for you. The last three are going to do bad things for you.
Right. And that's where I think a lot of people fail to realize that they can use purchase data or non-opted in data. Now, they may have a flash in a pan, right? Send out an email, make some money or get some conversions over off that, but you're going to hurt yourself in the long run. And just to point this out to the people in the U.S., with canned spam, sure, you could purchase lists. You don't have to get opt-ins. You could send. You just need to identify who you are and provide a way to opt out, right? But is that the right thing to do? More and more lately, we're hearing no for numerous reasons, and you can also talk about spam traps and honeypots, right? Where these are specific email addresses that are set up to catch people sending to email addresses they shouldn't, that theoretically don't exist anymore or are brand new but never really been out in the wild, right? And those are important things. So yeah, I think the US is probably going to speed up a little bit and start enacting some more legislation around, what the EU is doing, and those various other countries, which I didn't know a couple of them actually had those rigid rules in place. Then when we start and look at authentication, so that is something that you do before you hit send when you set up, say you're setting up your email program, or maybe you didn't know you need to do this and you've been doing it for years, but now you need to do that. And we'll talk about what that is in a moment. But Matthew, let me ask you this. Is this something I should do, or is it something I have to do when it comes to authentication?
Yeah, so a little bit of history, right? So SPF came out early 2000s, like 2003. So it's been around 20 years. It's no longer just a I should do this. Like it's got longevity and legs. It's been around. DCAM came a few years later, maybe like mid 2000s, 2007, 2008. So it's been around almost equally as long. And we as an industry did a lot of effort to brands, get clients, get marketers to implement these types of technologies. We implemented then DMARC came out, which was to help some of the gaps that maybe SPF and DKIM left behind. But in 2023, Google and Yahoo jointly announced if you want to send us commercial email in any volume, specifically like they had mentioned sort of 5,000, but that's kind of a loose number. If you're sending bulk mail, you want to do these things. And they basically said if you don't do these things, at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to stop accepting your mail. So they said, okay, you must meet the minimum height requirement as SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Do these things. That's your minimum height now. On top of all of the other, you must send permission-based email, etc. So it's no longer a case of you should do this. It's now a case of you must do this if you're sending bulk communications.
Yes. You have to do it. It's the bar, right? That has been set by the those. And now like every time somebody mentions Yahoo, it's not just yahoo.com. They own what, Hotmail. What else do they own? They own a couple others, right?
I mean, well, they don't own Hotmail. That's Microsoft stuff. But Yahoo manages mail for
Oh, Verizon. I
about
meant Verizon, right?
okay. Verizon, yes. They manage the mail for Verizon. I don't think they're owned by them anymore. But
No.
um, they manage Yahoo Global, except for Yahoo Japan. That's like a sister company affiliated through licensing. Um, Verizon, all of AT&T now. They operate Rogers, which is a Canadian mailbox provider. Comcast is now migrating there. So it's not just Yahoo. It's not just AOL. It's Yahoo AOL plus about 50-ish. I mean, there's probably more, but there's 50 well-known
Yeah.
flavors of domain, if you will. Google is tens of thousands, if not millions. Microsoft, um, is several dozen geographical flavors between Hotmail, Outlook, MSN, if you remember that, Web
Yeah.
TV, if you're old enough. And then, their Office 365 platform, again, is tens of thousands, if not millions of business domains. So
Yeah.
when they come together and say, you must be this tall to ride, you step up and put on your big kid pants and off you go and figure it out.
And a lot of people, I think, that are not that knowledgeable, they may say, well, Gmail, Yahoo, I'm B2B, so this doesn't affect me. Well, people use Google for business, they use Microsoft for business. Same rules apply. It's just not masked or anything, but it's just, if you're using a domain and you're using Gmail as your platform for receiving and sending emails, the same rules apply. And I think that's important to say.
But I think the other piece is, right, like I own several very small domains where I'm maybe the only user, or, it's my wife and I on a branded personal domain kind of things, very small user levels. But I see my domains spoofed all the time. And I'm only sending hundreds of messages a month off those, personal communications mostly. But I see my domains get spoofed all the time. So I went out and I did all the work to get DMARC implemented,
Mhm.
make sure that it was at a point where if someone was spoofing one of my domains, it's protected. It's not going to impact the reputation of my domain because somebody else is doing. And that's another important piece with DMARC is it helps protect your brand reputation. All of these things do to say, I am authorizing these mail servers, I am authorizing these systems and these domains to send mail on my behalf. And if it doesn't come from those places, take an action under DMARC.
And for those that may not know what we're talking about in detail, I'll put some links in the show notes, folks, for some blog posts. This way you can have some light reading and learn about SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, sender policy framework, domain keys, identified mail. Let's see if I can do DMARC. Sometimes I forget it when I'm put on the spot here. Domain message authentication and conformance. No, you could probably say it better
Uh,
than
re-
me.
Reporting,
Yeah, reporting
I'm
and
going to look it up
conformance. There
myself
you go.
because I
Yes.
can domain
I only memorize it when I'm
messaging.
on stage.
Oh, I know. It's one of those things. It's domain-based messaging, authentication, reporting, and conformance.
There you go.
I never say the long version, so I always look it up too. DMARC is the answer.
And you know, three of them are separate, and the last, or actually two of them are separate, and the last one makes sure that the other two are playing well together. That's how I like to say
Exactly. That it's a
it.
layered approach. Yes.
Right. So links in the show notes for that. Now, let me ask you this. What is your recommendation on BIMI, brand indicators for message identification.
100% biased, just so everyone that's out there is listening. I am currently the active communications chair for the BIMI working group. So anytime you email into the website, you're probably going to get a reply from me, just as an FYI. I love BIMI. I love the idea of it. I get that it's complicated, but like I said, email is hard. The idea of putting a brand logo next to a brand name in the inbox um, is something that, I can never remember what the exact stat is, but humans process images significantly faster than they process words, right? It's like 300 times faster or something. So I'm going to recognize a logo of a business that I work with likely much faster than I might remember the name. Um, but there's that added layer where if you're doing BIMI and Google and Yahoo and whoever else that is checking the certificates that come in, they're going to put a little checkbox next to your name that says, we validated that this sender authenticated the mail, right? And your logo shows up. So then you have multiple different pieces for consumers to say, oh, this really is a brand that I recognize. This really is a brand that I want to engage with. And I mean, the one thing that I wish I had a better answer for is, the impact that BIMI has. Anecdotally, I've worked with many brands to set it up and they see, increased engagement. Um, but like all things, if you make six changes, which of those six changes was the one that caused the impact? So you need to be methodical about how you're doing those changes and then measure them out over time to say, this change likely had the most impact.
Right. And in essence, folks, really what it's doing is just like Matthew said, is putting your logo in the inbox next to your email. Like if you see an email from Best Buy, it'll be the Best Buy logo instead of the B for Best Buy. It is pay to play, right? You need to have a certificate. I think it went in from,
I mean,
you get,
it's pay to play to a degree,
yeah,
right? There is the idea of a self-asserted logo, which is an unpaid, but it also has limited support and limited features.
right.
So there is a low bar, roll it out, see how it impacts at the domains that don't require it. Say like Yahoo doesn't require a VMC, Fastmail doesn't require a VMC, but they do then layer on things like reputation,
Mhm.
behavior, et cetera, et cetera. Or they only do it for certain types of mail, right? Oh,
Right.
we'll put a logo on your commercial mail, but not your personal mail. So there's things like that by being self-asserted for free. I mean, and Gmark is typically a paid service. Emails are your paid service, so you're paying for some things. But there is a free version, and you could roll it out and say, well, what did it do just to that one audience? And
Hmm.
then you can compare that to your control group of the people that aren't seeing it. So you
Right.
can see some benefit, some change there. But like I said, which change was the impact? Was it just
Right.
the logo started showing up, or was it you changed your behavior to get better reputation? Was it you fixed your authentication along the way that did it? Attribution's always been hard in digital. I mean,
Right.
you probably know this more than I do, right? Attribution of where did the money come from? Did it come from that ad that someone saw? Did it come from the email they saw? Did it come from the social media post they saw?
My
Attribution
podcast.
is hard. Did they come from your podcast? Exactly.
Well, I didn't mean, I meant, well, I did mean pay to play, but in other words, it's like paying to get certified because I had to jump through those hoops for Kickbox. They're certifying you own the domain. They're certifying a whole bunch of different things to make sure you are who you say you are. You also have to have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC set up before you can even apply for it. And I think what you mentioned the VMC certificate, which I know you had to have a registered logo, trademarked logo, whereas now they have a CMC certificate, which you don't need to have that, but it's only $300 cheaper, 1,500, and then the CMC is 1,200. But now you're saying there's a free version, which is exciting.
The free version's always been around, but it's just had limited support. Like Google won't use it,
Yeah,
right? And other mailbox providers may use it in a limited fashion. But again, like the free version, there's a higher bar maybe. I don't mean higher bar because all of these solutions will say if your reputation sucks, I don't care how much money you paid for a certificate,
right.
right? If your reputation sucks, I'm never going to display your logo if it's in the spam folder. that's the kind of, those are the types of things that you're going to see. Um, but yes, there is a self-asserted logo that will show up in many instances. Myself, for my domains, where it makes sense, like the Canadian Email Summit, which you spoke at this year. So again, thank you for coming and speaking at the Canadian Email Summit.
Mhm.
Um, I have a free logo, right? Because I don't have a trademark. So I set up the free version. I know how to do it, and it displays at the mailbox providers that it displays at, and those that it doesn't, they just see the little icon that has this, C in it.
Mhm. And like you said, you can try it with the free version, see if you think it's helping, and then do the paid version for Google and go from there. And then make sure you
And
go to the conference next year so you can learn more about what's going on. It's always I always can use an excuse to go to Toronto and get some poutine and hang out with some email marketing folks. Hopefully I'll be there next year.
I mean, there's also Inbox Expo coming up in the new year. So
Yes,
lots of opportunities for events to possibly even come and meet Hank and I.
definitely. And then I know you help people with email deliverability. If you found someone that was struggling and they think their emails are not going to the inbox, they have a decent quality of frequency and decent amount of contacts, what would you say to that person? In other words, I come to you and say, Matthew, I heard you know about email marketing. I feel like my emails may be going to spam rather than the inbox. Can you help me?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that we do. I may talk and say, just send me a couple emails and see what happens. Here's a short list of my personal email addresses. Send me a couple tests and I'll see what happens. We also, our primary first step with any client here at Email Industries is we do a 90-day audit, right? So that audit will talk about how you're configured, the types of messages you're sending. We'll look at your list sources. We'll look at your websites, and we'll go through all of those steps, and we'll determine like, do you actually have a problem? And if so, what do we need to do to fix that problem? Where in the chain is something failing?
Mhm.
And if we can fix all of those things, we'll also then go talk to the mailbox providers and say, we made all these changes for this customer. We fixed all of these things. Let's try to remediate this issue and work together because these are customers that are mutual customers between the mailbox provider and the client, the
Mhm.
marketer, that have asked for this message. And somewhere in between, something got mixed up and the messages stopped delivering to the consumer's inbox, or they stopped delivering altogether. So there's that happy medium of what's broken and we can fix, and then talking to the mailbox providers to say, let's try again.
In my opinion, it's always worth working with someone like Email Industries when you have an email deliverability problem. When you're talking about like marketing, like writing a blog or maybe fixing something on your website with WordPress, sure, you can use ChatGPT to help guide you and maybe actually fix something or write a really good blog post. But when it comes to email deliverability, there's, I don't know if I want to use the phrase moving parts, but there's just so much analysis that you have to do and also possibly have access to some tools and relationships that somebody at Email Industries might have where ChatGPT is not going to help you out with that, or no YouTube video is really going to help you out. If you feel like your emails are going to spam and you feel like you have a deliverability problem, it is best to actually work with people that are very knowledgeable because there's just so many hidden things that, something like ChatGPT may either confuse you or won't even surface it for you.
Well, and I think there's the wonderful piece of AI is it gives you answers very quickly. The bad part of AI is it sometimes will hallucinate an answer or it will have been trained on bad answers and then regurgitate those bad answers, which may make your problem worse. I like to kind of think of my team as a group of physiotherapists for digital marketing, right? If you sprained your ankle and you're starting to have some challenges, maybe you're just not able to deliver to Microsoft anymore, but you deliver fine everywhere else, we can help with that. We can rehab your ankle. But if you've been in a massive car accident and your program's on life support because now you've been blocklisted by a major reputation provider or something like that, we can also help with that rehabilitation, which takes longer, um, but at the same time, get you stronger and better out the door. I mean, as much as I hate the idea of a client being like, you guys did such a good job, we don't want to work with you anymore. because we fixed all the problems, and that does happen, unfortunately. Um, it's also a success for me to say, like, I made a difference with that marketing program to fix whatever challenges they have. And oftentimes those clients will come back for an annual checkup, just like they would with like a doctor. They'll come in for a physical and be like, let's just see where we're at now and see what we can change.
Email Industries, the email wellness center.
I might use that. I might push that to the marketing team and be like, can we take this and run with it somewhere?
Here's what we prescribe. I
That's
like
right.
that.
Holistic marketing for your email. I mean, holistic email already exists.
I love
Cafe is a wonderful lady, but
it.
um, you know,
Yeah, I love it. I mean,
naturopath help for your email, maybe something like
that's
that.
awesome. How long have you been doing email deliverability?
I mean, I just celebrated 25 years in the email business. I've
Wow.
been doing deliverability for probably close to 23 of those years, at some level. I started off in network operations, so just making sure mail servers were up and running and sending mail, which then sort of pivoted into now you're responsible to make sure that the mail actually delivers, which then pivoted into now you're in charge of deliverability.
Yeah, I had Lucky Cannon from Zoho on a while back, and he was actually talking about the mail transfer agents. Even I know about it, but it was kind of cool to talk about that and inform people like what a mail transfer agent does because people don't understand that. They think they press send, it just goes from one server to another and it goes to the inbox, but not when you're sending in bulk.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It gets a lot more complicated the more messages you send.
All right. What? Oh God, how do I want to ask this question? What is some of your favorite subject lines? Like, it doesn't have to be a subject line. Like, what things do you like to see included in a subject line that help get the engagement, which also helps with deliverability?
I mean, I could probably list off what I dislike better than what I do like.
Let's do that.
I mean, I think things I dislike is, your daily update. That's what your subject is. Every single day, it's your daily update. Nothing makes me lose interest faster in an email program than seeing the same subject line every single day, right? News media outlets are bad for it. Today's headlines, that's all they send you. Um, Retail, like grocery, is bad. Your weekly flyer over and over. I look through my inbox and it just says your weekly flyer and there's 30 of them. It means I haven't read your email in 30 weeks, right? Because I'm probably just going to go to the store and pick up the flyer when I'm shopping,
Yeah.
or look at the digital flyer on my phone instead. Um,
Hmm.
Excessive amounts of emojis. My advice when talking with customers is no more than two emojis at any given time.
Yeah.
And the reason partly for that is not all devices support emojis in the same way. They may not support all the same emojis even. Or, the red heart, it might show up as a black heart somewhere. So there goes Valentine's Day, your red heart emoji, and you're really excited it shows up in Gmail, but it shows up on, someone's Thunderbird as a black heart, right? So be aware of the emojis you're using, test it on multiple clients, test it in multiple views. Don't expect it to render the same everywhere. Um, so I think that's certainly one. Um, Other things from subject lines that I like. Clearly, I like them to be relevant to the content. If it's your lead story and you're a media site and it's your lead story, try leading with that. Because if it's the most important story you think it's going to be, it might be the one that I want to read to. Um, I think questions and subject lines as well, like find out the answer inside, right?
Hmm.
It's that clickbaity kind of stuff, but not so clickbaity, if you will. Um, because again, questions draw people in,
Right.
right? Um, I'm so over people being like, don't ever use free in the subject line. Search your own inbox. Like, go do this as an example. Search your own inbox for subject free, right? I'm gonna guarantee you have a few dozen messages from the last month that say free something in the subject line. Free shipping, buy one, get one free, those types of things. It's gonna be in there.
Yeah.
The whole idea of don't use these magic keywords in your subject line is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, obviously, don't say, if you're not selling Viagra, don't say Viagra or spell it funny or whatever it happens to be. Um, But the idea of, content being that huge player now, like it used to be, it still has influence on decisions. But
Hmm.
really, it's your IP reputation, your domain reputation, your authentication, and your user engagement. Content just plays a small part in that, except if you mail to Microsoft. Their content filters tend to be very aggressive.
Hmm. Here's something I just thought of, and it was like a flash in the pan, still there, but nobody's talking about it. So I have an iPhone, and when Apple Intelligence came out, they started doing the AI email overviews, right, or the summaries, right? And everybody was up in arms, like, how do we optimize for that? How do we know what it's going to do? Is it going to be same for me and different for you? All these things. Do you have any type of information or guidance on where that might be going? And do we need to pay attention to that right now if we're marketers?
So I do think there are some things that people need to pay attention to there. Are they delivery related? Probably not. But from the point of view of, I don't know if you've been following, but Washington State has recently come out with a law that talks about the idea of misleading advertising,
Hmm.
right? And we've seen cases. I just learned of another one today, but like there was an Old Navy case. There's a case against Skechers, and the one that I learned about today, I'm spacing on the name. But anyways, these are like, limited time offer. And then like the time expires and they say, oh, we've
Yep.
extended the sale 24 hours or 48 hours, right? Now what they're saying is that's misleading because you maybe knew you were going to extend the sale anyways. Um, so you have to be careful about what you're saying in the messages now. But if you're AI generating summaries, right? I'm starting to get to the point where I'm starting to think marketers need to put like a disclaimer in their footer that says, the content of the email is the offer. If the AI generator said something
Uh-huh.
different, that's not our fault. Or, let your lawyer figure out the right language.
Yeah.
But, if the AI comes out and says, spectacular deal, 50% off because it read something in your email,
Yeah.
but your promotion is only like, the deal's on 50% of our products, not 50% off, but the AI reads it wrong. Who's responsible? Who's
Hmm.
liable for the AI summarizing something bad? Is it the brand or is it the AI software? Who gets sued? Well, everyone's going to get sued, right? So I think there's starting to get like I honestly think brands need to consider this,
I
especially if
like
you're
that.
in retail. Some disclaimer. If an AI generator showed you something different than the offer in the email is the legit one.
Not responsible for errors and omissions in AI summaries. Results may vary.
I mean, something like that, yeah. And I mean, I know it's a feature I disabled on my iPhone because I didn't like the summers, right?
I think they're
And
funny. Sometimes it like hallucinates or says something really weird. That's what I look for. That's the only reason I keep it on is I like seeing when they mess
right,
up.
but then it comes down to that conversation of who's liable when it's so wrong,
Yeah.
right? Or, if you use the same template over and over, but you've left notes or commented out code somewhere and it picks up on that commented out code and it's an old offer. Well, who's responsible for that, right? It's really the content you see is what we are offering. Anything else, you should discount because that's not what
Wow.
we're saying.
That was a good bit of advice to putting that down in the footer. I really like, like you see it on commercials and stuff all the time. You see all these disclaimers and stuff and
Right? Or,
statements.
you see it if you go to a store and the flyer was wrong, they'll put a flyer right on the door, like a notice that said, unfortunately, our flyer this week said it was BOGO when it's actually not, or whatever it happened to be, right?
Right. All right. Any thoughts to wrap up the show? Anything we didn't talk about that might be pertinent to deliverability or anything or
I
Canadian?
mean, we, we could probably talk about deliverability for another 3 episodes if we wanted to really go deep.
Yeah.
I think baseline. I would say ensure your mail is authenticated properly and you meet the minimum requirements. Turn on reporting for DMARC. Don't just trust that your P equals none is good enough. It's good enough for now, but if you're not actually looking at what's failing or not, you're behind anyways. Um, and I can't stress enough. Consent-based marketing is where you're going to see better results. Um, so, especially in B2C, if you're out there, Don't go out and buy the million addresses or 100,000 addresses or whatever. Um, it's not going to do any favors. It's not going. You're going to be chasing wasted money. You might as well just burn it or use it for lookalike audiences because that's really the only thing it's good for.
What was that organization? Do you remember years ago? They had a campaign that said every time you buy a list, a puppy dies.
So that was the Email Experience Council. I was on the board at the time
Okay.
when we came up with that. I mean, they did a lot of really cool things that unfortunately never took off. There was the SAME project, which is standardized analytics and metrics for email. ESPs just decided they like to be able to build their own version of reporting that makes them look fantastic compared to their competitors, as opposed to having a standardized set of metrics. I'd love to see that get revived, but yeah, I think the every time you buy a list, the puppy. I mean, it's maybe not as politically correct, but at the time, it was a feature of its time. Um, and yeah, I think I can't remember who exactly dreamed it up, but it was one of those things. The Email Experience Council, I think, had that for a bit, or maybe it was maybe it's one of the consultants here in Toronto um, that was running it at the time. But yeah, I definitely remember that campaign. I still occasionally see the photo show up every once in a while. A very
Might
sad
have to
looking
try to
puppy.
find that image and put it in the show notes just so people could see it. It was real cool. The advertisement for that. Well, Matthew, how can people find you, connect with you, and more importantly, work with you to make sure their emails get to the inbox?
So you can find me on social, pretty much email karma everything. Any of those, you'll find it. I'm on Instagram, Blue Sky. I have my blog, emailkarma.net. Um, I'm not really on X anymore, so don't look for me there.
Mhm.
Um, and if you want to work with email industries, emailindustries.com, you can reach my team at help@emailindustries.com, and we'll definitely be glad to talk to you. And if you have some simple questions, we'll just answer them. If you need some consulting stuff, we definitely have programs that'll fit your budget.
Well, there you have it, folks. Your wellness plan for email deliverability. Check out Email Industries, the Canadian Email Summit. Connect with Matthew on LinkedIn. And more importantly, support the show by subscribing. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks for having me.